Leanne Shea with Aviation Week here at MRO Europe in London with Bruce Dickinson, who is the chairman of Cardiff Aviation and also the lead singer for Iron Maiden. Bruce, what lessons have you learned from the Iron Maiden Tour and the roadies, and how does that apply to MRO?
Well, it's interesting in rock and roll world because we, we work obviously round the clock on tour to get the band on stage, to get the gear in, loads in at 7 in the morning, loads out at the show finishes at 11, and by 1 o'clock those 8 or 10 trucks are loaded and rolling, and 7 o'clock the next morning it goes into the next venue. That cycle of planning and getting everything like a well-oiled machine is exactly what MROs should be like. And what we discovered when I was working as an airline pilot was that very often MROs were always expensive and always late. So the thing you learn from working in rock and roll is don't be like those MROs when you're going to put your own company back together, and be able to be flexible. I mean, the whole thing about MROs is, even though you're turning spanners on aeroplanes, you're talking to customers at the end of the day. It's people. People go on these airplanes. If people aren't flying on the airplanes, it costs the customer money, and the customer is people too. Their jobs depend on having that airplane out of that hangar and working.
So it sounds like there are a lot of synergies between MRO music and being a pilot.
Well, yeah, weirdly enough, I think there are. I mean, certainly in creating the concept of our series of businesses, we've got 3, pilot training, an airline and the MRO, all as one big sort of bubble, as it were, a one-stop shop. That's something which, as a musician, we've become used to, particularly since the whole digital thing, and since traditional record companies all fell over, and all the traditional models all fell on their heads. Yet, people still need music. People still demand it even more than they ever did. So you've got a product that everybody wants. It's just got to be looked at in a different way. And I think that aviation maintenance in a bubble by itself, really, it's hard to see how it can just exist in that way, because it's so interrelated with everything else that happens in aviation. It is one big world.
So how are you turning customers into fans?
Customers into fans is something something that cropped up as a sort of a catchphrase. I do quite a bit of for my sins. I've ended up doing a bit of corporate speaking, and everybody loves this idea that how do you turn customers into fans? And effectively, it just comes down to relationships. It's down to thinking about the way I put it is this. I always say I hate customers. People say, oh, you need to look after your customers. I say, no, I hate customers, because customers can walk away. But if you have a reasonably good relationship with your wife or your partner or whatever, every time you have an argument, you don't walk away. Why? Because you have a relationship. And so the key to developing long-term strategies for your company, for our MRO, is to develop relationships and trust with customers. So they don't just be customers, they're friends. And if they're friends and you have relationships, when you screw up, and you will, and they will, they'll give you an airplane that they say is going to be like a 4,000 hour check, and you open it up and it turns out it's full of holes like a Swiss cheese. And you go, this is 8,000 hours we're going to do on this airplane, buddy. What are we going to do? So those are the sorts of things where if you have a relationship, you can work it out. And you work it out in the correct spirit. If you have this adversarial thing, then for me, it's not really the way I want to do business. It's not the way I want to work with people. It's looking at building long-term value, and that means a relationship, and that means trust.
Sounds good. Thank Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah.
Thank you.